Another awesome season of racing in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup is almost over. The season finale is finally upon us, and we're at the Sepang International Circuit this weekend alongside the penultimate round of the 2019 MotoGP World Championship to decide who will be this year's overall cup winner. The technical challenge and slipstream dream that is Sepang, along with the added factor of extreme heat and humidity, will surely mean that the two races taking place today and tomorrow will be some of the most spectacular of the season. Coming into the final round, there's three riders who could take the crown. Series leader Takuma Matsuyama looks strong starting from pole position, but is nursing an injury from Motegi. Sho Nishimura, his compatriot, is 12 points adrift and won't go down without a fight. And then there's the Indonesian rider, Afritza Munandar. Can he spring a surprise from 27 points back? It's all to play for here in Sepang. It's showtime for the Asia Talent Cup. Hello, good afternoon from the Sepang International Circuit, around about 50k south of Kuala Lumpur, just outside Kuala Lumpur International Airport. It's a glorious setting that we have for motorcycle racing here, and this is a race 11 of 12 in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup for 2019. Still yet to crown a champion, and boy oh boy has this racetrack seen some showdowns in this series in the past. The fans are still in after just watching an absolutely stellar MotoGP qualifying. They're still on the hillside. You've got to be careful, there's some clouds around here looking ever threatening. They always are in this part of the world, to be fair. Had some sprinkles during the qualifying sessions, but nothing fallen too serious. The riders are on the grid and they're getting ready for racing, and this is your championship leader Takuma Matsuyama, nursing an injury in that right hand that he just gave a thumbs up with. He really fought through the pain barrier a few weeks ago in Japan and Motegi. His main championship rival, Sho Nishimura, 12 points back he is. He lines up next to him on the grid in position 2, and there was only 5,000ths of a second separating the two of them. Very good afternoon to you. My name's Matt Dunn, of course, and alongside me, as ever, Fran Wild in the commentary box. No big brother leaving the house and running towards Parc Fermé for Fran today. Thankfully, it's some distance to go. Fran, welcome to the finale of the season. Of course, you've been watching this all season long, as we both have. What are your thoughts coming into this final round?
My thoughts are that the two at the top of the standings definitely deserve to be there. And Munandar in third as well has been very impressive on occasion. And that it's the Asia Talent Cup and anything genuinely can happen. We say it too much, but we've seen this cup decided literally on the 10 metres before the finish line here at Sepang a couple of years ago. I remember that well. That was when Dennis Onchu took it on the slipstream towards the line. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great race. Hopefully not too much drama. And
we like a bit of drama in the Asia Talent Cup. We like a lot of
drama, but we don't want the broken-hearted kind of drama. Just good, clean, close racing, which is what we've had for the majority of the season. Yeah, completely agree with that. Takuma Matsuyama, well, last time we came here in Sepang, of course, we've already had a race here so far this season. This was the scene of round 3 in the 2019 Cup. And it was Sho Nishimura who really took the spoils there. So Takuma Matsuyama only came away, as I look back through my notes, he came away with a third place and a crash. So it's the history is not on his side here, but he is on a bit of a roll. It's not, but indeed he is, and he's certainly the man with the momentum in the second half of the season. Although in Motegi in that second race, it was Nishimura who struck back and seemed to iron out a few of his troubles that he'd had since the summer break. Nothing too dramatic, but just didn't quite look like the rider who'd largely dominated the first couple of rounds of the season. But now I think it's game on between the two of them. Matsuyama, like we said, nursing a bit of an injury. Hopefully that won't come into play too much. But this track, bit of a different one to Motegi, and a very different challenge. So I think we could still, we could see plenty happen today, because of course a lot of these guys have a lot more track time under their belts as well since the last time we raced here. Yes,
this is one of the circuits which they're far more experienced on, of course, because the selection event does take place here. It happened just the other day, and they have 2 rounds here per season.
And the test as well, the pre-season test.
Exactly that. So plenty of miles under their belts already at Sepang. Absolutely no question about which way around the track goes. They must know it like the back of their hand. And if there's one thing for Matsuyama coming away from Motegi, that's an extremely hard circuit to be nursing an injury from. Such hard braking zones. There are some very hard braking zones here, but it's also, especially with these bikes, with the track so wide, it is so fast and flowing, it might be a bit of an easier time for him. But you know.
Yeah, I think one thing, though, the Indonesian rider Mananda, who's third in the standings, still in with a shout at taking the cup, especially if we get some ATC drama. He might find it a little easier to race in this heat and humidity.
Yeah, quite possibly so.
Unless Matsuyama and Nishimura have done a few sneaky Suzuka 8 hours that we don't know about, I think it's a little bit more of a challenge for those guys compared to the Indonesians and Malaysians on the grid, because we do, of course, have a home hero.
Yep, absolutely.
Or a couple, rather.
Well, yes, yeah, a couple of home heroes to go in. Yeah, of course, we talk about Matsuyama and Nishimura, and then Munandar as the key riders to keep an eye on in terms of the championship. But the beauty of the Asia Talent Cup is it's fierce and fast racing throughout the field, and there's plenty of guys willing to take podiums and wins and as many points as possible off them. Shoki Igarashi, he might have made an irrational move back in Thailand, but he's lining up third on the grid.
For those of you who've been watching all season, apologies for that being the 77th time that's been mentioned.
Yep. And then Herjan Firdaus, another former podium finisher, he will be lining up 4th place on the grid. Tajikorn Bwasri, former winner, of course, so far this year, he'll be lining up on 6th. So those guys are alongside of Fritz and Munandar. Siarifudin Asman, we saw him on our screens a little bit earlier on. He's 7th on the grid. He has some podiums under his belt now as well. But last time we were here, what happened down at the final corner, Fran?
Yeah, it was a bit of a dramatic visit to Sepang, and but I'm sure this time around the Malaysian will be hoping to absolutely not repeat that. And he has taken, yeah, exactly. He has taken a huge step forward in the last few races, and yeah, had a couple of podiums and really been one to watch in this second half of the season. So hopefully that home turf pressure will more cheer him on rather than put him off and give him a few nerves. But yeah, definitely what happened at Sepang first time round, not something we want to see repeated with the title on such a knife edge as well.
Precisely. Well, there is one of the other championship contenders there, Sho Nishimura, the man so dominant at the start of the season, the number 3. He really did put in an awesome performance last time out in Motegi. I remember us saying in race 1, Takuma Matsuyama with his form, those 3 wins in a row that he had combined with those wins in Thailand, those were champions rides, those were. But then Nishimura, clearly he watched the commentary back, clearly he took issue with what we were saying, because then he put in what I would argue as a champions ride in the second race as well. Absolutely awesome.
Yeah, it really was. It was a weekend of 2 halves in Motegi, and yeah, on Saturday Matsuyama was the hero, and on Sunday Nishimura. For the home fans, of course, great to see Japanese riders taking those wins, but yeah, it was a bit of a different story for this one. Lost out a little bit on in that Sunday race with a mistake on the final lap, I think it was as well. It wasn't even on the penultimate lap, and just couldn't quite get back in that podium fight, and Nishimura struck back, and now here we are. So he can be crowned today, can Matsuyama, but the odds are fairly long.
Yeah, depending on well, as we say, anything can happen in the Asia Talent Cup. It really can. You can even find the championship pretty much decided in Parc Fermé like it was last year. And if I remember rightly, Fran, race 1 last year we thought it couldn't get more dramatic than that, could we? We thought the championship was over after race 1, and then another one of the contenders fell off, if I remember rightly, and then it all went down to race 2 and over the line, and it was just exhausting for everybody concerned, not at least for these guys on track. Yeah,
absolutely. So at the moment then it's 169 that Matsuyama has, with Nishimura on 157. They're your key contenders. Fritz and Munandar, it's make or break for him today. He's on 142, so he has to gain ground on Matsuyama in this race to still be in with a shout tomorrow. So that's going to be an interesting one as well. Not quite the qualifying of the compatriots who start first and second from him, although we have seen him make a few really solid starts. So it's 50 points in play before this race. At the end of it, it's 25, and that is the magic number for Matsuyama. He needs to be 26 or more clear of Nishimura, though, because they could be equal on wins.
There you go. That is the other factor that
equation.
Yeah, so even a win is going to be beneficial to these guys. They can't just play it safe, bag a second if someone, you know, all that sort of thing. They need to go for as many wins as possible. And Fritz and Munandar, history is certainly on his side as well, because the last time we were here in Malaysia, the Indonesian rider managed to bag 2nd place and a win, of course, after that overly dramatic final corner moves and crashes from Nishimura.
Yep, so you saw it just come up on your screen there. So it's Boisri is the man who's just outside that title fight, 51 points down, that one single pivotal point. Much like you've seen Augusto Fernandez in Moto2, exactly 50 points down, but unfortunately on the win count and second place count and everything else you have to take into account once you get such close margins, is out of the running. So the Thai rider sadly cannot lift the crown, but he is one of many on this grid that could most definitely win this race. So it's going to be a pretty interesting one, I think. There's by no means 3 riders out there who are going to clear off and have a guaranteed 3-way fight to just decide the cup and then go home. There's a very full field of talent here, and many of whom have been on the podium, and of course different things to take into account: home pressure, home glory on the line, and yeah, maybe for some a first podium and a first win.
Super exciting prospect of the riders roll up to the grid to begin the penultimate race of the 2019 Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. There's your current series leader, Takuma Matsuyama, the number 11, the yellow helmet. He'll be looking to do all he can to keep his competitors at bay. Sho Nishimura rocks up in ultra cool style alongside him, as cool as you like. And finally, on the outside of that, 3 Japanese men on the front row of the grid. Shoki Igarashi, what can he do? Who's going to get the jump down to turn 1? It's a hell of a long way on these Moto3 machines. The man at the back of the grid takes off. The man at the front of the grid takes off. The lights are red. And they go out in the penultimate race of the 2019 Asia Talent Cup. We are away. Good starts from all the guys, but it looks like Nishimura has got the jump on his main championship rival, Takuma Matsuyama. Boisri, he's customarily a good starter as well, but Igarashi, who's that number 13? Oh, that looks like Asmat coming up the inside, but Sho Nishimura, he has got the whole shot here. Be very careful into turns 1 and 2. It is ultra tight. Do not get your wheels tagged. Do not go down. Do not ruin your championship in the first 2 corners. They're all safely through, Fran.
Yeah, absolutely. You could see completely contrasting turn 1 and 2 there from Nishimura and Matsuyama. Matsuyama got a bit of a worse start, but you can see him super conservative through the first couple of corners, making sure he didn't get tagged and avoided some drama too early on. Sho Nishimura, meanwhile, straight round the outside. No cares in the world about who might be clattering into him, a bit over keen into turn 1, and has taken the lead. So really impressive stuff from him. He was absolutely lightning quick off the start.
It really, really was. Exactly the same as he was in race 2 back in Motegi. Matsuyama getting a bit close to the back wheeler, number 14 there. That is Shoki Igarashi, the man who started on the front row of the grid with him. And that is the number 4. That is Fritz Munendal going up Matsuyama's inside as well. So he's getting all sorts of beaten up. I guess the only saving grace is for Matsuyama is these sorts of things can happen in the opening laps. Take it steady, keep out of trouble, but then work your way back through the pack. Igarashi goes irrational up the inside. Not too irrational, he keeps it upright, as do all the other right. Oh, we have a crash there. Who's gone down? That looked like they might have tagged Matsuyama. Who is it who's gone down? We
Didn't
can't
see
quite
exactly who it was, but it does look like Matsuyama then did manage to get through. I think that's his yellow helmet. Yep, so there's the number 11 just at the back of this group, and then a bit of a gulf. Who was it?
I think it was Munendar. I think it was Munendar. I cannot see the number 4 anymore, and he's got a very distinctive helmet. I think we got a red flag. We got a red flag already. So the race is stopped. They're coming back round. They're on the straight here, and I think it is Munendar who's gone down. I cannot see the number 4 then, so he has been tagged. We hope he's all right. Well, that's definitely a false start then for the Asia Talent Cup. Here we go back into pit lane then, all the riders, some of them frustrated about that. There's the number 20, that is Abdul Mutakim. Big crash for him last time out as well.
Yeah, so obviously as soon as we get any information on the rider who's gone down, who we think it was Munendar, then we'll bring it to you as soon as we can. You can see everyone then reacting pretty quickly to that, keeping calm and heading back down into the pits then until we get an update on the situation.
Well, back in they come, and I'm sure it'll be a full race rerun then. For not even completed a single lap before the red flag has been brought out here in the Asia Talent Cup. And a couple of red flags so far this season. Oh, it's the number 22. That is the wild card. That's Idlan Raduan, who's gone down as well in a big, big way. But where? We're waiting for the... we have... oh, there's Ogo, and my apologies. He's gone down. The entry list, sorry, has given me the wrong number there. So there's been another crash out there somewhere, which our cameras did not pick up. So Ogo, that was the number 22 who has gone down, but that looks like another bike was involved as well.
So maybe it wasn't actually for that crash as we thought a little bit further around the lap, but it was actually back from the lead group. So hopefully we'll get an update, like we said. Rider seemed to be stretchered away there. We'll see who was involved and what exactly has happened. As you can see, everyone then who wasn't involved back to pit lane. So they'll be sat there waiting for news just as we are to see what exactly is going to happen now.
Absolutely. Well, Fran, whilst we're waiting, we see a couple of riders. I think that's Nishimura off for a toilet break quickly. Hopefully it won't be too long before we can get back underway again. I'm sure it'll be a quick restart procedure as well. Riders heading out on track when we finally get underway. But meanwhile, at least the riders can go and talk to their teams and say, well, I felt this on the first few corners, etc., on the first part of the lap. No, we mentioned it at the top of the show, but the Sepang International Circuit presents a completely different challenge to what these guys will be used to. Even more humidity, perhaps, than they experienced back in Thailand as well. Described it earlier to our colleagues, as our Western colleagues who are not quite so used to this weather. It's almost like when you go into a leisure centre back home, to a very, very warm leisure centre with a very hot swimming pool when you walk outside out of the air conditioning here. That's the only way I can really describe it. It
really is. It's a bit of a shock for those of us, especially from Northern Europe. I think it's, yeah, very, very different conditions. But like we said, there's a few guys on this grid who've been racing and competing in this heat since the day they first put their leg over a motorcycle. So that's a bit of a different story for them. But some maybe find it a little tougher going than others. The scope of the ATC, of course, is absolutely huge. It's from the likes of Qatari and Turkish riders all the way over to Australia and New Zealand, Asia and Oceania. And I was going to say everywhere in between, but there really is nothing more than those two huge continents in between. So, yeah, it's very different nationalities, cultures, all racing together in this cup. And you can see then they're just waiting for some news as well.
We do have some news on our timing screens. So we have a new race distance. 8 laps it will be instead of 13 this time around when we get going again. No news on our timing screens as to when that will be, so bear with us. Feel free to go away, put the kettle on, sort out a cup of tea. But make sure your table is positioned far away from the sofa enough that you can jump up out of your seat freely without knocking over your cup of tea or coffee, whatever you fancy.
Yep, absolutely. So they're still dealing with that incident then. Down on the track, you can see plenty of marshals and all the medical guys there trying to help those guys out as quickly as possible, as is always true at any MotoGP event or the ATC. Quick response time from them, and then hopefully we'll be able to get some updates soon enough as well. So we're getting a bit of a chat then for the guys down in pit lane to just go through what's happened.
Well, the riders being briefed then by the organisers. And obviously with the ambulances on track, our thoughts are with the riders involved there. We saw one of them being stretchered away. We hope other riders involved will get some positive news soon, of course. I'm sure the fans in the crowd are hopeful of that as well. And of course, just thinking of the riders involved.
Yeah, so these guys then getting some instructions on news as to what's going to happen now. Can't quite listen in to exactly what they're being told, but it's probably not really for our ears yet either. And then you can see Jan Onju down in pit lane as well.
Still the pole position record holder in the Asia Talent Cup here. He holds the record for the best race lap and the all-time lap record in the Asia Talent Cup here as well.
Actually sent a stat attack quickly to our other group earlier when he got through to Q2 and Moto3, sorry for the spoiler. And of the 4 races here in 2017 in the ATC, Jan Onju won every single one of them with a margin of between about 2.5 seconds and 6.5 seconds. So he was the absolute master of this track.
Well, Jan does declare that this is his favourite track on the calendar, and rightly so. He's gone through to Q2 this afternoon, as we mentioned. We'll try not to give many more spoilers, of course.
I think that was a special reasoning for that one, with the man himself down in pit lane.
We're going to get much abuse on Twitter and Facebook if we do spoil about where Jan has managed to get into Q2 or not. Won't give away any of the other news unless we really need to. But riders getting ready then, it seems, making sure they're comfortable on their machines, ready to go out as and when they may need to. Blimey, there's some scuff leathers there, the rider chatting to Jan. Very, very scuff leathers. My goodness, he's been down the road in those couple of times. That's Herbe. Oh, well, there you go. Jan, well, you'll see him, the former Red Bull Rookies champion. Bless him, he's so interactive with these young kids, both in the Asia Talent Cup and the Red Bull Rookies. When he's not having debriefs with his crew, etc., he's very good at going to see them and checking how they are and how they're getting on, giving them tips and advice where he can. So then, Matsuyama tries to keep cool, the number 11. Alongside him, that's the number 10, Herjan Firdaus, the Indonesian rider, podium finisher so far this year. There is the number 24, that is Kanta Hamada. Of course, good wildcard appearance from him last time out in Japan as well. Up there fighting in the lead group as well. Jan seems to be going through all the riders' fans to give them some tips and advice. And I tell you what, I guess this is where the guys aren't really thankful that the Asia Talent Cup shirts are great, because it's seriously, you can tell exactly how hard it is, not just for the riders but also the mechanics out there as well. So, of course, here at the Sepang International Circuit, as we mentioned at the top of the show, so much experience through the field on this track.
So we do have a little bit of an update then at the moment. It was indeed number 4, which is Manunda, and number 22, which is Ego. They were both involved in that crash, so it's a crash between the two of them that's caused the red flag rather than a separate incident or something different. Obviously, we've not seen it on the TV screens, and they're still working at the moment to try and sort that out after that incident. So, but it was Mananda and Ogo that have been involved.
All right, well, we're very much thoughts are with both of them at the moment. Of course, Mananda, third in the championship, still within a shout of it. But of course, main thing right now is that we're hoping we get some positive news about them very, very soon, of course.
So you can see then at the moment it's a waiting game in pit lane for these guys as well, to try and wait and get an update. And those guys still in the stands, faithfully waiting to see some ATC action. It's always incredible to see the passion for motorcycle racing in Asia, whether it's the Premier Class, whether it's the Asia Talent Cup, whether it's World Superbike, full grandstands. Incredible stuff to see. So they've waited it out today through the incredible heat here in Malaysia for this race. And then you can see then we've got riders back on bikes, just again, like we said, waiting for an update, them as much as us.
Absolutely. That was, of course, the number 13, Sharafuddin Azman, really come into his own of late in terms of form. First saw him really fighting up the sharp end last time we were here at round 3. But of course he came together with Shoni Shimura and the likes at the final corner. But since then, put that mistake to bed, learned from it, and has been an ever-present threat up the front. Even found himself podium contention and bagging a podium twice, no less, in the last 3 times, I should say, in the last couple of rounds. 3rd place in Thailand and a 2nd place in race 2, and then a 3rd place in Japan race 1 as well, and only just missed out with 4th place in the 2nd race as well, with that battle for 5 going all the way to the wire. You could really see Matsuyama with that race. He did the work that he needed to do in race 1 last time out, despite that injury. And then in race two,
yeah,
decided to just watch it.
Just a moment on that final lap. And obviously, when it is the final lap of the race, it's incredibly difficult to make up those meters, because that's the point as well, when everyone else is at full gas as well, fighting it out as quickly, well, not as quickly as possible, of course, but you know what I mean. That's when everyone else has that extra little bit that just comes out the tank on that final lap. So Matsuyama, he did manage to catch that group, which was incredible in itself. He really cut through those meters of the gap really quickly, but just ran out of time to attack. And then here we are. But he still does have that lead. So I think it'd be interesting as well, given that it was Nishimura who looked a little bit mentally shakier after he came back from the summer break, and he is the guy who's behind. So, I mean, I love all this psychology and that kind of stuff with these things, like no spoilers we saw earlier in MotoGP. The mental side of the game is a big one as well. But both of the guys have been really, really impressive this season as well. Yeah, they really, really have. And in terms of the mental side, you could definitely see the last round just how mentally strong our championship contenders really are, particularly with Matsuyama fighting through the pain barrier there in race one. When he won that and came across the line, and we had some slow motion images, you could really see as his helmet came up and he sort of shook his hand, the anguish in his face, almost like the adrenaline relief having managed to get around and win that race despite how much pain he was clearly in from that free practice crash that he had. Something to behold. He's a very quiet character, is Matsuyama. Doesn't say much, a man of few words, you might say. But a fierce, fierce competitor when the visor goes down, that is for sure. Our riders using their handheld fans to keep themselves cool. Still waiting for any updates here of what's happening. Oh, we have a helicopter landing, so thinking then that the rider involved is about to be airlifted to hospital, so we await news of that. Well, all our thoughts in that case then are absolutely with the rider. They're being treated. So we do have confirmation then on our timing screens that the race has been cancelled for today. So obviously that's most important thing in times like this, is the riders involved in the crash and making sure they get the help they need as soon as possible. So for today then, that's our ATC race cancelled, and there won't be a result. Obviously with only almost not even a lap completed in that one. But yeah, all we can say really then is just best wishes to those guys who were involved in that crash. Really hope to hear ourselves and to bring you some good news about them as soon as we can.
Absolutely, completely echoes those thoughts then, Fran. So main thing, of course, now then, yeah, as you rightly say, riders get the necessary treatment that they need. And these guys, they pack up, reset for tomorrow.
Race 1 masa besok? Nggak mungkin. Udah race 2 besok.
Well then, so we await then for tomorrow's finale of the Asia Talent Cup, of course, then one more race, so it'll be 11 race series, 11 results on the board.
It will be, and yeah, sadly we're not fluent enough to be able to tell you exactly what that conversation down in pit lane was about. So here we get confirmation then on the ticker that the race was cancelled due to that incident and turn 10 that involved number 22 Ogo and number 4 Mananda, our Indonesian title contender. So hopefully we'll get some good news as soon as possible on those guys. And many thanks for joining us today for this race, and we hope that we'll be able to give you some updates as soon as possible.
Yep, completely agree with that.
Well, so then, that's it for now then from Sepang International Circuit.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you tomorrow for the finale of the 2019 Asia Talent Cup.
ke depan kau kan.